The night that Tyler Steen got drafted, Barrett Brooks had this to say about Tyler Steen.
He can play this game. He's a powerful player, but he's just not explosive right now. He hasn't unlocked his power angles, unlocked his body. He'll learn that at Stoutland University.
He talked about Tyler unlocking his power angles to become a more explosive player, and while I agree, Barrett didn't dive into too much detail about what power angles are. Today, I'll go over that. Keep in mind, even though this video is highlighting Steen, power angles apply to virtually every position in football in some way, shape, or form. When you hear someone refer to power angles, what they are referring to is the angles created in the ankles, knees, and hips when the player is priming themselves to create some type of explosive movement. That could refer to a player getting ready to do a number of different actions, such as leaping into the air to high point a ball, preparing for a tackle, or in this case, a blocker exploding into a defender. We see these angles when in a squat position. We also see these angles come into play when watching players test for the vertical and broad jumps at the NFL Combine. Think of these power angles like a spring that's being coiled up. Tension is built up as the coil tightens, producing an explosive movement once that tension is released. Power cleans and other types of cleans are some of the best ways to train explosive power, which is why football players do them so much. In the starting position of the power clean, you can see all three of the power angles tightly coiled, loading the hips, knees, and ankles, and this is similar to what we want to see from offensive linemen as they prepare to block. Notice the hip hinge and flat back. The hips are behind the feet, engaging the powerful glute, hamstring, and lower back muscles. Another thing to notice is that the shoulders, knees, and balls of the feet are stacked over each other. Coordinating their movements together in the same direction acts as a force multiplier to generate as much power as possible. We want to see these same general principles applied for offensive linemen, though keep in mind, it will be impossible for any player to be in this deep of a position and still move effectively. And considering the offensive lineman will need to move upward and outward, the plane of movement will be rotated forward as well. Now, as we look at a game clip, notice how Landon Dickerson takes his steps and gets both feet rooted into the ground. He coils his body tight, condensing those angles in the ankles, knees, and hips. His hips are hinged, engaging the posterior chain, and his shoulders, knees, and balls of his feet are in line. As he moves into contact, he snaps his hips forward into the defender and then drives his feet. Here we see the same thing with Lane, though ideally we'd like to see both feet in the ground on contact, as that creates a more powerful base. It's not always possible to do that based on a number of factors such as alignment and movement of the defender and the steps needed for the play call. But the same principles apply. Body coiled, hips hinged, shoulders, knees, and toes in alignment, and the hips rolling into the defender on contact. The angles are released upon contact. We see triple extension of the ankles, knees, and hips, and the defender gets moved off his spot 2 yards. Jason Kelce has tremendous mobility in his ankles, knees, and hips, and a great understanding of his power angles, and that is a big reason why he has been able to dominate guys that are 50 pounds heavier than him for the past 12 years. When looking at Steen, he has more of a tendency to lean and push on a defender, which causes several issues. He doesn't coil his body to condense his power angles. He bends at the waist instead of hinging at the hips. Instead of seeing the spine tilted close to a 45-degree angle, it's nearly parallel to the ground. His feet are behind his hips instead of underneath his body. His shoulders, knees, and balls of the feet are no longer in line. If he were to snap his hips into contact, he would fall on his face. With his body so far over his feet, he has no balance, his head is buried, and he can't see the defender. Imagine trying to push a car. Do you think you'd be more powerful bending at the waist and pushing, or getting the shoulders, hips, knees, and feet all in alignment to push forward together? The other issue with Tyler bending at the waist instead of coiling his body is that he gets off balance, ducks his head, and completely misses his opponent. Now, to be clear, there are plenty of reps where Tyler does play with good power angles, and when he does, he is able to generate a lot of force. His biggest issue to me is that he gets overly aggressive and starts extending into the defender prematurely. He needs to do a better job playing with his feet and being patient until the defender is in the strike zone, and then unload. Here, we can see Jordan Mailata doing a good job of this. On this play against Texas, he has good power angles initially. His hips, knees, and ankles are loaded, but he releases too early. Because he has to lunge so far, he can't snap his hips into contact. Luckily for him, he has incredible grip strength, which allows him to hold on. And once he can come back to balance and roll his hips into the defender, he starts to get movement. But we'd like to see his body be in sync when he initiates contact. These same principles apply in the run and pass game. He shows a strong anchor when he utilizes his power angles, but he needs to be more consistent playing with his feet and better posture leading up to the point of attack. Like when he is run blocking, he gets overzealous and reaches too often, leaving his feet behind and causing him to lose his power and balance. So as we get into training camp and preseason games, this is one area of Tyler's game that we want to pay attention to. The guy has tree trunks for legs, and his testing numbers show that he has great explosive ability in his body, especially for a 320-pound guy. Now it's just about putting that time in at Stoutland U to develop the body mechanics that will allow his athleticism to shine.